When was the last time you spoke on behalf of someone? When was the last time you defended someone? Or when was the last time you raised your voice against some injustice? Dear sisters, at the very outset, let me wish you a very happy feast of St.Anne, the patroness of your congregation. And since you are in these days of preparation for the same, I implore God's choicest blessing upon each one of you, that God's assistance may always accompany you in fulfilling the mission that has been entrusted to you by the congregation, your province, or your communities. We are in the special Jubilee year, the Jubilee year of hope. I would like to reflect on a deep connection that is there between the Jubilee year that we are celebrating and the inauguration of the papacy of our late Pope Francis. May his soul rest in peace. We are well aware the way in which he began his papacy. At the very beginning of his papacy, we know he came out with this wonderful document, Misericordia Vultus. The face of God is mercy. And then, now, just before he went to his eternal reward, he has given this entire world this year of Jubilee, the year of hope. My dear friends, I believe it is mercy that actually fills each of us with hope. When in distress, consoling words of someone, especially someone close to us, restores hope. In discouragement, a small word of encouragement again fills us with hope. When in loss, an assurance that I am there for you certainly fills our hearts and minds with hope. When we make mistakes, a word of forgiveness, no, a simple gesture of telling, I forgive you, once again gives us a lot of hope. And when we feel lonely, alone, left for ourselves, no, an assurance that says, I am there for you, I am near you, or that nearness itself can once again fill our hearts and minds with a lot of hope, my dear friends. So therefore, I said, mercy is what fills us with hope. That is why I think in that document, Misericordia Vultus, our Pope, late Pope Francis, has written this wonderful statement, which has really struck me several times and several occasions. I have used this quotation. Our Pope writes, be islands of mercy in the sea of world's sorrows. Let me repeat, be islands of mercy in the sea of world's sorrows. My dear friends, I think Pope is using these two images, the image of the sea and the image of the island. I don't know how many of you have traveled by sea, going by a ship, you have traveled through the sea. Uh, Again, I have also not traveled, but at least we can imagine people traveling by sea, for many days and months they would be traveling in order to reach the other side. I think one deep longing that they would be having is to find land somewhere. They are longing to step there, step onto some land to have once again the taste of the land, as we can say. A deep longing is there. When our Pope calls our world as a sea of sorrow, I think each of us is traveling through that sea. We have our own shares of struggles, We have our own shares of problems hitting us like waves in a sea. Right now, we are not only thinking of our problems, we are also thinking of the problem and the sorrow, the suffering that is there in the world. Traveling, facing all these troubles, suffering, etc., is as if we are traveling through a sea of sorrows. And just like the people who travel by sea have the deep longing for land, those of us and those of our brothers and sisters who are in great sorrow, tormented by suffering, etc., are looking for places where they can experience some mercy. Therefore, the island would symbolize any individual who is capable of showing that mercy. So, therefore, my dear friends, I think the call of this document, again, the call given by our late Pope Francis, is simply to become those islands. Therefore, to be merciful means to be islands of comfort, islands of consolation, and islands of care, where people who are traveling through the sea of sorrow can encounter us and thus experience the comfort, the consolation, and the care that they are looking for. Again, that is what we see in the whole Bible. The biblical understanding of mercy, if you want to see, we immediately look at the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 25, verses 31 to 46. Of course, the scene is of the Last Judgment, the way every individual would be judged, etc. But what we look at in that section of the Gospel is what we call as the corporal acts of mercy, feeding the hungry, giving water to the thirsty, clothing the naked, giving or visiting a sick person, offering some comfort, and visiting someone who is in prison, who is in a kind of loneliness. When we look at these, as we see as acts of mercy, what I see in them is curative acts of mercy. Like someone is in trouble, either someone is hungry or thirsty or naked, etc. And then there I can go as an individual who offers something to alleviate their problem, which could be either, as we said, hunger or thirst or loneliness or whatever. So we are looking at the acts of mercy as some curative acts. Like when we are sick, we take medicine and the medicine cures us. But my dear friends, I think there is another phase of mercy itself. This another phase of mercy which goes hand in hand with the theme that you have chosen for reflection on this particular day of the Novena, to be the voice of the voiceless. Therefore, in this context of the theme, for each of us, to be merciful also means to become the voice of the voiceless. Therefore, the call is for us to use preventive acts or actions rather than curative acts or actions of mercy. We are well aware to be the voice means to raise our voice against social situations or discriminations or injustice that almost throw people into situations of being hungry, thirsty, lonely, naked, and being imprisoned. My dear friends, to be a voice is almost a biblical tradition. We have the great example of Moses, the leader of that great rescue mission, we can say, of rescuing the people of God, the people of Israel from the place of bondage called Egypt, and then leading them towards the promised land. You know, God calls Moses to speak on behalf of the oppressed Israelites. And despite his fear and weakness, Moses becomes a great liberator, a person who led the entire nation towards freedom, fighting against the great Pharaoh of Egypt. He becomes the voice of the people who were in bondage. Secondly, we have the example of Queen Esther, someone who risked her life to advocate for her people. No, she was placed by God as a defender. We know that she was not a ruler, or she was not someone endowed with no great power or a strength, but yet, being a simple queen, she dared to go and speak before the king on behalf of her people. She becomes the voice of those people. And if that day the people of Israel were spared from mass massacre, I think it was due to the voice of Queen Esther. Similarly, we have prophets like Amos, Isaiah, and Jeremiah, who time and again condemned injustice, corruption, and neglect of the poor. They become constant reminders to the people of Israel to give up unjust means, to uphold justice, and to be away from all sorts of corruption. A prophetic voice is what we find in these three great prophets. No, and Amos in chapter 5, verse 24 would say, "Let justice roll down like waters." No, which means he says justice should be made available to everyone. Thus, we see once again a voice that is standing for justice, a voice that is standing for people. We have Jesus, the ultimate voice of the voiceless, in his entire life, the 3 years of his active ministry. That's what we see. He is going about healing the sick, defending women, raising the dead, forgiving sinners. And he himself manifests his mission. That is what we see in Gospel according to Luke, what we call it as the Nazareth Manifesto. He says, "My mission is to proclaim liberty to captives and set the oppressed free." Being the Son of God, he becomes the voice for his people who were oppressed once again by the society. Dear friends, following the example of these prophets, the biblical figures as we have seen, and also of the wonderful example of Jesus, our Master himself, the church has taken up this mission. Now, the church is called to echo this prophetic voice. And therefore, to quote once again our late Pope Francis, who says, "The church is called to be a field hospital." A hospital that goes about caring for those who are ill. The world is certainly ill due to hopelessness, due to illness, etc. And the church is called to be a field hospital. Therefore, good to ask these questions. Who are these voiceless today in and around me? Our late Pope himself would make us aware of who are these people, who would say, the unborn, the refugees, the elderly, especially those neglected ones, the victims of abuse, mentally ill, and you would also say the earth itself is something that has become voiceless. The earth is calling us to be its voice. I think following the mission of the church, we also have a certain real life examples of Christians who have become voice of the voiceless. We have Sister Norma Pimentel, of USA, who is known for the migrant advocacy she is doing. A Catholic sister helping thousands of migrants at the US-Mexico border. She provides a shelter, food, and speaks out publicly for humane immigration policies. And she says, these people, these refugees, they are not statistics, they are people with dignity. We have our own Father Stan Swami, uh, who fought for the rights of the tribals, a Jesuit priest who worked for decades with Adivasis in Jharkhand. He advocated for the land rights and education, and as we know, he died in custody after being falsely accused of anti-national activity. He stands tall as a martyr of justice and the voiceless poor. We have Jean Vanier from Canada, who is known for disability advocacy. He founded the Larke communities where people with and without disabilities live together. And he revolutionized how a society views and treats those with intellectual disabilities. He becomes a voice for them. We have Sister Ruth Psav from Pakistan, who is known for caring for uh, leprosy patients, a German nun known as the Mother Teresa of Pakistan. She spends 50 plus years helping leprosy patients and restoring their dignity. And Pakistan was declared leprosy free in 1996 due to her efforts. She becomes the voice of those people who are struggling with their illness. Again, we have our late Pope Francis, who spoke globally for refugees, the poor, the climate justice, and the unborn. And in his encyclical Laudato Si, there is a voice for the earth and future generations. My dear friends, we have just now looked at various examples, both from the Bible as well as from our own general society, models of people who are being voice of the voiceless. But often, when it comes to being a voice in ourselves, we could go through certain challenges. One of the significant challenges could be one that of indifference. I have heard many people remarking, they say the whole world is becoming indifferent to everything, even indifferent to human suffering and indifferent to injustice, etc. So therefore, indifference is a kind of a mindset which says, not my problem. This is not my problem. It is their problem, and let them manage. Terrible indifference it is, and it's a challenge for those who want to be voice, but this voice can pull them down. It's not my problem. Secondly, we have the challenge of fear. Often there may be we want to be a voice of the voiceless, but suddenly we hear some voice in our own ear which says, what will others think? What will others think about you? So that fear can draw us back from being a voice of the voiceless. And another a dangerous challenge that is there is silence. People prefer to be silent about any injustice or any corruption that is going in and around them. People think silence is safer. But we know silence can be complicity. Therefore, we are called not to be neutral, but to be just. In order to be just, we need to overcome these fears that we have. The fear of indifference, the challenge of indifference, the challenge of fear, and the challenge of an attitude which says silence is safer. Therefore, my dear friends, towards the end, let us look at what can we do in practical way in order to become the voice of the voiceless. I would say we could start it in very, very simple ways. First thing, let us listen deeply. In James chapter 1 verse 19 we see, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak. Truly, what we need is to hear the pain of the poor, the migrants, the abused, the disabled and marginalized. We need to create spaces, safe spaces for these unheard sections of the society to share their stories. Secondly, speak up against injustice. No? We need to be strong in challenging discrimination, abuse, and inequality, even when it's unpopular. You let us use our voice in conversations, social media, and public forums to advocate for truth and justice. Thirdly, act through charity and service. Again, James 2:17 would say, faith without works is dead. We are all believers, but let us show our faith in that one provident God who cares for everyone. No, let us show our faith through our deeds. Therefore, as and when it is possible, let us volunteer with organizations or at least network with those organizations that serve vulnerable populations. We need to support education, healthcare, and livelihoods for the neglected. We are already doing, I am sure, in your own mission. I am sure your charism is encouraging you to do this. But we need to maybe once again relook into our own charism and see how we can relaunch into the new avenues of challenges that we have in our mission, especially when it comes to caring for the neglected and the voiceless. Yes, certainly. Next, what we need is to pray and intercede. No, we invited not only pray for the voiceless, but also to pray with them. Let us lift their concerns to God and seek guidance on how to act. If any of us is thinking, oh, I'm not involved in active mission, therefore I have no possibility of working for the people, the voiceless people, my dear friends, your being in the convent, praying and interceding for them constantly is a great voice, a voice that will knock at the doors of heaven and which will draw responses from heaven. Prayer is powerful. Next, let's educate and empower others. No, many of you, I'm sure, are involved in teaching mission. Therefore, teach children and communities about human dignity and the gospel justice. Empower the voiceless to find and use their own voice. Here we have the wisdom of the ages, as we can say. Teach people how to fish instead of giving them fish. So let's empower the voiceless, so that they can claim their rights through their own voice. Lastly, we could think of be present where others walk away. In our own possible ways, let us visit the elderly, the sick. Let us listen to the lonely, welcome the outcast. Sometimes your presence itself may speak louder than words. My dear sisters, being the voice of the voiceless is not about being heroic. It's about being human. It's what I would prefer to call as a human vocation. It means standing beside those whose stories are dismissed. It means advocating for justice, not for ourselves, but for those who cannot demand it for themselves. It's about transforming compassion into action. Let's remember, a voice raised with conviction is more powerful than 1,000 spoken in fear. Let us commit to being a generation that listens deeply, speaks kindly, and acts boldly. Let us live in such a way that no one around us is left unheard. So today and every day, let us pledge to be the voice of the voiceless, not for applause, but for change, not for fame, but for justice. God bless us all.